Now, Sports Talk with Brodes. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Brodes. The more and more I think about this move that Howie Roseman made, I love it. I love it. It grows on me as the hours tick, as the minutes tick, as the seconds tick. It's a great move. And I hate that people despise it just because of the individual that made the decision. If Daryl Morey made this move, it's a home run. And I know that George Hill is a fantastic acquisition for where this 76ers team is, but let's be realistic. It's somewhat underwhelming that what you're going to get after the trade deadline, considering Kyle Lowry was a big hot ticket and there were others that were involved. The fact that you're going to get a player who they're expecting to play 10 games in the last 26 just to get a little bit of flow heading into the postseason, that's your big trade deadline move, and everyone is so juiced up about it. And to be fair, it's a nice move, but we can be realistic with ourselves and say, well, it's a little underwhelming if you take a few steps back considering what could have been when you're thinking about making a legitimate, insane playoff push. But we love it. Why? Because of Daryl Morey and the trust in Daryl Morey, even though Daryl Morey hasn't even won a championship, and that's not to knock him because he is one of the better executives in the entire sport in the NBA. So I'm not sitting here trying to destroy Daryl Morey. I'm putting it in perspective when we talk about Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman made a move that is good for this franchise, but people look at it as a miserable approach just because of who made it. If Daryl Morey made something equivalent to this, you would say, wow, this is amazing. Look how great he is, and look about how he's thinking about the future and not just the right now, and think about what he's setting yourself up with. Right now, the first-round pick is not into your possession because it's not for a following draft. So it doesn't pop as much. But next year, when you're sitting in front of either 2 first-rounders and 2 seconds or 3 first-rounders and 1 second-round pick, you're going to be in a totally different mindset. You're going to be in a totally different environment emotionally because we will have more information on what Jalen Hurts is, what Nick Sirianni is, what Jonathan Gannon is all about. We will know more about the draft picks this season and what holes you need to fix for next season. And keep in mind, I can't stress this enough. The Eagles are going to have significantly more cap space to go out and acquire talent in free agency, maybe make some moves, whatever the case may be. You have way more money to play with that will help fill holes on top of all of the draft picks that you have acquired over the last 2 seasons, which is 20 draft picks. So I just can't stand that people are allowing their bias towards Howie Roseman to hate the pick when it is, or to hate the trade, I should say, when in theory it is a phenomenal move for a team that has so many issues. I keep hearing this. What do you need right now? You need an impact player. Where do you get your impact player? Top 6 in the draft. Top picks in the draft. 12 is still a top pick in the draft. You ever hear Fletcher Cox? Is he an impact player? You ever hear of Marshawn Lynch? Is he an impact player? You ever hear of Deshaun Watson? Is he an impact player? To act as if there's not impact players at 12, that's laughable. All right, they moved 6 spots down. Is there more of a realistic possibility of messing up at 12 compared to 6? No doubt about it. But that doesn't mean that there's not insane talent at 12. You just need to find it. And there is a way to separate the two when it comes to execution and blueprint. If you've been listening to me for quite some time, you know I want to see a game plan. I want to see what your ideas are. I want to see your motor. Like, where are you going here? What's the direction of the franchise? What are you trying to lay out? Let me see at least something that makes sense on paper if I was asking for a plan. Let me see the plan. And this plan makes sense. So step 1, I am supporting. Here's step 1. Looking at your roster, recognizing that there are some holes in this roster that need to be filled. So with that being said, if you can go from 6 to 12 and pick up, let's say they get Devontae Smith. If they get Devontae Smith, they're still getting that player that can be such a difference in your offensive scheme, or Jalen Waddle. Let's say the Howie Roseman and the Eagles select one of those two wide receivers, and you still have that player that can help Nick Sirianni big time when it comes to game planning and making this better for Jalen Hurts. Would your expectations change then, or would your feelings change then about the move back? They can still get a guy that can help out this offense. They can still get a guy that helps out this defense. And I feel that the Cowboys are probably looking in that Surtain category. So it's possible they go out and get the Alabama corner, but there's still plenty of other options on the table if you're looking for that defensive player, because they are limited in that area. Under the age of 30, looking at defensive players that you can rely on, there's nothing there. So what about Farley? Maybe you can go out and get a Farley. Or there's plenty of other options. There's still something great that you can grab in that spot. So step one is something that is insanely important to me that I can support. This is a game plan that logically is all there. Take away the hatred of Howie Roseman. The logic of having a roster that has a million holes and going to grab another first-round pick in next year's draft is something that I can absolutely support 100 out of 100 times. Now, step two would be coming together, listening to what your personnel department says, and listening to what the high scouts say, and applying their logic and their research into selecting the right player. And if they end up giving you wrong information, then yeah, I mean, there's more to analyzing that has to be done internally. Now, I heard Jeff McClain speaking earlier today about the fact that not everybody is sold on Jalen Hurts and when it comes to the personnel department. But we know that, right? That's something we all understand. There's a reason why there were reports that came out that when Jeremy Chin was available, he was ranked higher than Jalen Hurts, but they elected to go down the road of that backup quarterback. But here's why I kind of like where they're set up. Because it's almost as if we are giving Jalen Hurts the opportunity to prove himself. And he doesn't have to go out there and win 7, 8, 9 games or go win the division to prove himself. I think there's clearly a scale here that he is going to be judged on, based off of what's around him, based off of having an entire coaching staff that is very raw and new to the NFL lifestyle. So it's not like Jalen Hurts has to go out there and tear up the league and be this dominating force for the Eagles to come together at the end of the year and say, I want to push forward with Jalen Hurts, or I want to look in another direction. He just has to give you enough positivity to say that there's something there. Now, he can utilize his legs. He can be that player that is going to, when there's something that isn't available on the field, and if there's coverage downfield that is totally dominating some of the Eagles' offense, he can take off and he can run and he can go for 10, 15, 20 yards and slide. He needs to work on the accuracy. And I heard Jimmy Kempski say this on the Farzy show with Mark Farzetta, and I think it's a very solid point. When it comes to Jalen Hurts, people talk about the velocity of the throwing arm and the speed of the football and that side of things. It's definitely not a strong suit of his game, but is it something that is so brutal that he can't be successful with it? No, it's not to that extreme either. So it's not a pro, but it's not a con. He can get by with it. What really needs to be better is his accuracy. And if they work together on that, and we understand with the new quarterback coach and their relationship in the past, maybe that's something that's constantly drilled into his head this offseason, and they apply that to his offseason training where he comes back as a more accurate passer. If you're going to look at the stats from last year and look at Carson Wentz and crucify the man for the poor accuracy, which is valid, well, then you have to use that same mindset to Jalen Hurts as well. And don't tell me one guy had 5 years in the league, the other guy is a rookie, so you can't expect accuracy. This is the quarterback position. There's a big difference between reading the defense and applying the playbook and things of that nature to a rookie compared to a fifth-year starter. But we're talking about accuracy. You have the accuracy, you don't have the accuracy. You're a quarterback. Accuracy matters no matter if it's your first year or your fifth year. It's accuracy. It's not picking apart the defense and realizing coverages and certain things pre-snap. That's a totally different conversation. Accuracy And yeah, you can work on it, and there's things that you can definitely manage in the offseason. You can do certain drills, and you can make sure it is constantly in your offseason work to make you better. So, in theory, 5 offseasons of that compared to 1 offseason of that is a completely different beast. But still, I think that gets blown out of proportion from the accuracy standpoint of, 5 years versus 1 year. No, you have the accuracy, or you don't have the accuracy. That's something Jalen Hurts needs to work on. But getting back to why I feel comfortable with where they are set up is because of this. Let's say Jalen Hurts isn't the player that we want him to be. And I'm rooting for him to succeed. I want him to thrive. I want him to be a great player that we can rely on and say, hey, we found our quarterback. But if he's not, you are in position in the next year's draft to go up in trade. If he's not, you're probably at a bad season. Let's say they have a 4-win season. Let's say they draft 6th, 7th, in that range of 6, 7, 8, and you now have that first-round pick. You have Carson Wentz's first-round pick. You have this first-round pick with the Miami Marlins. I got baseball all in my mind. The Miami Dolphins. You have the second-round pick. You can jump up from 6, 7, 8 to 2nd overall, 3rd overall, and go get your quarterback. So if it doesn't work out, you are properly planned out to make that next move. So hate the guy or not, if you think about what Howie Roseman just did, he set yourself up with a backup plan if Jalen Hurts ends up being someone that you can't rely on. And you can go back and say, well, he put you in this situation to begin with. I got it. I know. We went down that road for the last full season of Eagles football. I know that this disaster falls on Jeffrey Lurie. It falls on a lot of people. All right? I put blame on a lot of people. It falls on Jeffrey Lurie for being at the top, Howie Roseman for being underneath him, Doug Peterson for being an embarrassment, Carson Wentz for losing his damn mind, the injuries, all of it. There's so many reasons why last year happened. But I don't understand how because you hate someone so much in Howie Roseman that you can't at least acknowledge that he has something here where, okay, if plan A works, you're good. And then you can use Jalen Hurts and use all those draft picks to help out defensively, to help out with the offense. Imagine next year, let's say you get Jalen Waddle this year or Devontae Smith in the first round. In the second round, maybe you go with the corner, or you go vice versa. Let's say you get Farley, and then you go in another situation where, and I'm just hypothetically throwing out a corner. It could be any corner available. If Surtain goes first, fine, whatever. You go on to the next one. I know Horn is a name that's been thrown out there. Let's say it's him, and then you go get a wide receiver in the second round. Think about what you can do with 3 first-round picks if Jalen Hurts is your player, if he is your quarterback. If you hit on Devontae Smith, if you hit on a corner, if you hit on a wide receiver, and then you can go out and grab so much talent next year in the first round and have money in free agency. Now, let's say Jalen Hurts falls on his face, and then it's, wow, you wasted a second-round pick, blew up your entire franchise, and now all those first-round picks that you just acquired, you now have to package them up to go get your quarterback. Should you praise the GM for making that type of move? I honestly do give them credit for having a backup plan because their backup plan is not just average. Their backup plan is not just garbage or it's not just like, okay, they have something just in case. It's good. To have that much firepower and to have that many picks in that following draft, that is a significant package. It's not an okay package. It's not an package. It's a serious threat of a package. So it's a damn good one. And Watson has a lot of issues right now, but if you get a Deshaun Watson, if you get a Russell Wilson, just think about the difference in where this franchise is. And I know, Russell Wilson, without a lot of talent, doesn't really move the needle. And if you go get a quarterback and you don't have other pieces surrounding him, it doesn't really move the needle. But guess what? You have the most important piece, and you have a shit ton of salary cap money to go play around with. I don't understand the hatred. That's my philosophy here. I don't understand the hatred. By the way, we are running a giveaway on my Twitter page. Go to my Twitter, @Brodes81. At the top of my profile, there is a pinned tweet. Right now, we are giving away a beautiful white windbreaker pullover with the Eagles logo on it. It is so nice. Make sure you are entered to win. All you have to do is retweet that tweet and follow me. And from there, I select a winner on Wednesdays. Every Wednesday, I do a new one. And if you're a Phillies fan, you are not going to want to miss out on what we have planned for you coming up this Wednesday. It's going to be special, and it's going to be a doozy. Imagine this. Say you do go get another quarterback after this season, and you get someone in the draft. With where they were last season, for them to be able to spin this all around, this dysfunction, this nightmare, to spin it all around after one season of Jalen Hurts, and if they can acquire a franchise quarterback again, just like you did in year one of Carson Wentz, that's pretty damn incredible. That's not normal. That's not standard. That's not a standard timeline of figuring things out. What they just went through is not a standard timeline either. So there is a little bit of, well, you caused the fire, but you're putting the fire out. Do you deserve some golf claps for doing it? Not necessarily, but there is something to it as well. I like how they're set up. I truly do like how they're set up right now, based off of circumstances. I don't want them to be here. I'm not jumping for joy that they are now in this position. But based off of what happened, how it all went down, now that we acknowledge that it is here and there's nothing you can do about it, how do you move forward? How do you push yourself in the right direction? I think step one, they have now done that. If step two falls on their face, I'm allowed to then criticize step two. Just because I admit that I feel great about step one, it doesn't mean, like, here's my thing. When they didn't go get CeeDee Lamb last year, everyone was so disgusted. But I liked it. I'd rather have a pick at the Jalen Reagor spot and my second-round pick than just CeeDee Lamb. And my point was, you had great talent still available at that spot. Justin Jefferson was available at that spot. Jalen Reagor plus Jeremy Chin, to me, is better than just CeeDee Lamb. So even if it was Reagor and Jeremy Chin, I'm taking that 100 out of 100 times over just CeeDee Lamb. So I was okay with what they did. And then when day two comes around and it's Jalen Hurts, I got the, Brodes, what are you saying now? I thought you supported their logic. Yeah, I supported the logic because the logic isn't flawed. The execution part might be flawed. And the track record of Howie Roseman as of late, Lurie and Howie Roseman combined, because Jeffrey Lurie has stepped in and made some of those disaster moves too, hasn't been great. But thrown in this terribleness, you have Miles Sanders. You have Dallas Goedert. You have some players that have contributed to this roster, and you need to hope that those type of players are the ones that they select. And that's what it comes down to. So that's where we are at. We have some anytime hotlines to get you. I want to hear more reactions to the trade down. But first, I do need to tell you about my friends over at DraftKings. 68 teams started the tournament. Only the best have survived. Oh, man, how about that game last night between Alabama and UCLA? The free throw shooting was terrible. I thought Oral Roberts was going to be able to beat Arkansas at the buzzer, but that was so close, wasn't able to execute. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is putting new customers in the center of the action. Bet $1 on any tournament game, and if your team wins, you win $100. It's that simple. Turning $1 into $100 is 100-to-1 odds. There's no better way to put your college basketball knowledge to the test than to put your money where your mouth is with DraftKings Sportsbook. If college basketball isn't for you, don't forget about all the daily odds boosts on pro basketball, hockey, golf, and so much more. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code BRODES when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 if the college basketball team of your choosing pulls off the win. That's code BRODES to turn $1 into $100 for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's dive in to what the people are saying. Here we go.
Brodes, I thought Howie couldn't get any worse. Now, he's reached his peak. don't get me wrong, the return actually isn't bad. Like, look, we only traded back 6 picks, and we get a Dolphins first-round pick next year. I understand that, and we could potentially have 3 first-round picks in 2022. But we just passed up on the best wide receiver prospect that we've seen since Julio Jones. And for what? Who's going to be there at 12? That's going to significantly impact the team next year.
All right, I'm going to answer that question. Devontae Smith can absolutely do that. Did you see what he did in college? Jalen Waddle. I know that people are a little skeptical on him because of the injury and all that, and he didn't play last season because of that injury, but I find it funny that Jamar Chase didn't play, and there's way more hype involved with him, even though he didn't play either, and I don't know. I think it's just interesting, and I think you're completely making an assumption that Jamar Chase is Julio Jones and nobody else at 12 is possibly available that can impact the team. That is insanely being irrational, and there are game changers that will be available at 12. You just need to hit on those, and who's to say that Jamar Chase was going to be their pick? What if they went out and got a Kyle Pitts? And yeah, he will impact your offense, but my point is I think you're downplaying the impact of a Devontae Smith, a Jalen Waddle, or anybody else that is available at that spot. Now let's get back to Julio Jones. You are a better football team with Julio Jones than without Julio Jones. But let me ask you this. What have the Atlanta Falcons won with Julio Jones? Now, they did make it to the Super Bowl, and they had a 28-3 lead, and I'm not going to take away that they were very, very, very close to winning a championship, and Julio Jones was a solid piece to their franchise's success that season. But I also feel like you mentioning Julio Jones means the Atlanta Falcons have been one of the best franchises ever because of Julio Jones. Quite frankly, they've been pretty damn disappointing. Now, why is that? Because there's other holes other than just Julio Jones being on that team. There's other holes with the Falcons that make it a little bit more problematic to have a lot of success. So hold on, you're telling me that having a stud game-changing wide receiver while there's other issues on your team isn't going to change anything? All right, I can get behind that logic. So now the alternative would be you have more picks to fill more holes. So maybe you don't have that Julio Jones, and that's not to say you can't find a game-changing type player in 12 still and also have that first-round pick. Both can be true, the first-round pick later on in next year's draft. So maybe you don't have that special player like Jamar Chase, but you have other holes filled. The Eagles won a championship with a good core. A good core. You just need a good core. You don't need Julio Jones. You don't. He's a nice player to have. You don't need that, though. I think it's so overblown, the whole number one receiver. And I've been through this before, though, specifically when it comes to money. When it comes to money, that's when that conversation dives a bit deeper, because in a salary cap league, and if your quarterback is making prime money and now you're putting prime money into a wide receiver, how does that impact the surrounding pieces and where you can spend with your 50-man roster in other situations, the 53-man roster in other spots on the field? So it's more intense when we get down that road. It would be significantly different if you're talking about a player like Julio Jones that's not making that much money and he's still on a cheaper contract. But that's where I think it's going to the extreme of, Jamar Chase. Man, this team is just in a different spot with Jamar Chase. I don't know if that's necessarily true. And we can throw that back to CeeDee Lamb or Rager plus Chin. Would I rather have Jamar Chase, or would I rather have who they take in the first round plus who they take in the first round next year? I would like to think that I would go with those two very good players that they can land in the first round in 2 years compared to one elite wide receiver, if that's what it ends up becoming. That's my approach on it, and apparently it's the same with the Eagles, and I support the logic.
I'm just going to say this. This could be a great move. We don't know. The problem is that this Eagles team needs impact players more than it needs future picks. And where do you find impact players when you have no money and you don't have any on the roster already? You get them at the high picks in the draft. And now the Eagles don't have that anymore. And I have grown real tight with Howie to the point where I can't trust him anymore on this kind of stuff. And I don't really want that extra pick knowing that there's probably going to be that Howie will probably screw it up.
No, you can't think that way. You can't think about that part of things. I don't want an extra first-round pick. Think about this. I don't want an extra first-round pick because they're going to mess it up anyway. Well, if that's the case, then they're going to mess up the 6th pick anyway. That's such a flawed way to think. You know what? I don't want extra because they're just going to fuck it up. Like, that is so bad to me. I can't stand that narrative, and there's a lot of Eagles fans that have it. They might screw it up, but that doesn't mean I don't want that extra first-round pick because of it. That's silly. Where do you get impact players? I don't disagree with my trust isn't fully there. I'm not sitting here saying I 100% believe that they're going to knock this thing out of the park perfectly, because that would be naive for me to believe so based off of the recent history of the two guys up top. I call them the Three Stooges when it was Doug Peterson, Laurie, and Howie. Now the Two Stooges stand. Will Nick Sirianni add and become that third stooge again? Maybe. Maybe there's a possibility of it. Yes, I'm with you with the impact player. They do need impact players. There will be an impact player available at 12. Guaranteed. Let's go through the history of the NFL draft. You think the only spots ever in the history of the NFL draft where there have been impact players is top 6 and up? Because that's just not a reality. I gave you Fletcher Cox. This same organization drafted Fletcher Cox at 12. Where did the Eagles pick? 12. Reuben Frank of NBC Sports Philadelphia put up this piece, all right? Now I typed in Reuben Frank stats. Now tell me how that's going to, and now I'm typing Reuben Frank again. What am I doing? NBC Sports Philadelphia, right? And he put up, let me see if I can find it on I hate their website setup nowadays. I think it's just garbage. Let's see if I can find the piece that I am looking for specifically. A look back at the recent number 12 picks. That one looks intriguing. 10 possible targets after Eagles trade back 12. That's not the one specifically I'm looking for, but basically he dove into the impact wide receiver in the top 10. And then I think it was top 10. But regardless, if it was the top part of the draft compared to the first round as a whole. So they specifically looked at the top section of the first round for wide receivers, and then the first round as a whole from an impact player standpoint with wide receivers. And the analytics are not that far off. The numbers tell you statistically you still have a fantastic percentage of landing that. So the number game will tell you. So in 2020, Henry Ruggs was picked 12th overall. In 2019, Rashawn Gary was picked 12th overall. You had Deshaun Watson, as I mentioned. You had Rankins in 2016, defensive tackle. Danny Shelton by the Browns. Odell Beckham Jr. Hayden in 2013. Fletcher Cox in 2012. There was a pretty ugly one in 2011 where Christian Ponder, unbelievable. But my point is, did you hear any impact players on that list? Because the answer is yes. There's impact players on the list. What's next?
My initial thoughts on the Eagles trade are these. From the jump, I don't like it. I mean, first of all, I consider the man making the picks. If you had a competent GM who you could trust picking at 12 now, I would say, okay, it makes sense. But now his margin for error has heightened tenfold. Number two, I worry if a guy like Kyle Pitts is now going to end up on Dallas or the Giants. And now you've got the perspective of facing him twice a year, every year for the next 10 years. Third, while getting 3 first-rounders in 2022 is good, you figure the Colts is going to be at the bottom of the first, and the Dolphins are going to be in the middle. So basically the bottom line to me is your tank of 2021 and the execution of it netted you a middle of the round pick.
So you're telling me if the Eagles stink like people think they are going to horrendously, you get a top first-round pick, you get a middle first-round pick, and you get a back end of the first-round pick, and we're complaining about that? Like, that's insane to me. And to start it off, if we had a competent GM, I know no one wants to hear this. Howie Roseman, compared to the rest of the NFL, is a competent GM. Competent GM? He's a competent GM. All right, let's look up the definition of competent for the people out there listening, just for a little dictionary.com here. Competent definition. All right, let's put it in perspective here. Having the ability to do something successfully. Capable. Satisfactory, though not outstanding. Satisfactory, though not outstanding. I think that's exactly where Howie Roseman is right now. So to answer your question, competent? I think so. What is next? Hit me.
What's up, Brodes? When I first heard the Eagles news today, I was like, what the fuck? I was a bit confused on what Howie Roseman was doing. And I'm like, pack your shit and get the fuck out of Philly. But, after looking into it more, they have 3 first-round picks for next year. I think that's what we need. We need that to help this team and to help this organization draft young, good talent. And, I don't think we're going to get Jamar Chase. I don't think we're going to get Conklin. But hopefully we can bring in young talent to help this team.
They definitely do need to hit on this 12th overall pick and still get a player who can ball out and be something special for this team. But the talent will be there. To act as if because you're going from 6 to 12. 12! You're telling me you're not going to be able to find any sort of talent? There's not going to be talent there? There's going to be talent there. So it's not about the idea of doing it. It's about you need to execute that part of it, but the idea of it all, it makes sense. The logical approach is there. Where I'm having the disconnect is here, and this is where we will kind of end things. All Eagles fans will agree that they have a lack of talent. There is a problem with how much talent is going to be on the roster. The way you fix that is by drafting. The way you fix that is by having a lot of assets. The way you fix that is by having cap space. So this year is going to be tough. You are going to have to grind through this season. After this year, things are going to open up, and I truly do believe that because you will be able to target free agents. You will be able to go get bigger names. You will be able to go draft. And the fact that you now have sitting in your back pocket all of these high-round draft picks for next season and for this season still, that's how you fix the problem. You fix the problem by what they're doing, yet it's not satisfying people. Everyone agrees they have a problem. The way to fix the problem is what they are doing. But you don't like the people who are making the decisions, therefore you automatically hate the decision. Dumbfounded. Dumbfounded. And that's where we will end things. I am dumbfounded. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you next time.